Welcome to Three Crosses Farrier Company. I'm Caleb, and we're going to be reshoeing the hind hooves on this horse today. This is my cart. Actually, I don't know that anyone's seen this in a video before, but that's where I carry all my rasps, hammers, and nippers. These pull-offs or shoe pullers, are Mustad. I've had several different brands over the years, and I've had these for probably the last 5, and they have worked amazing. They do a great job. I like that they have the square head. I think they work better when you're pulling shoes. Just before I came up to do this horse, we probably hadn't had rain for a couple of months, and just before I came up, we got a big old rainstorm. And so you can see the foot where it looks wet and it looks a little flaky. That's because all the callus that this horse has had over the summer, over the dry months, when it gets wet, it begins to exfoliate. I'm using a JH Forge short blade hoof knife here. Just cleaning up the commissures, shaping them up a little bit and getting rid of that extra hoof that's grown over the top of them and is helping trap dirt in the commissure. The commissure is the portion between the frog and the sole. It's super important. You'll see here that I'm not trimming off a ton. This horse is on a 6 to 7 week cycle, which is where I like most of my horses to be. Some are a little shorter, some are a little longer. It really depends on their growth. You can also see here a little bit of distortion in the toe. So if you look at the lamini wall, or the lamini right here, and then you look at the hoof wall, which is the outer portion of the hoof, the distortion is where you can see that that hoof wall is wider than at some other point in the hoof. So you'll see that the toe is a little wider. One of the things that I'm changing is I need to rasp the hoof before I nail up the shoe. So I need to finish the outside of the hoof, and it nails up much better. When I did this video, I wasn't doing that, but it's actually something I'm incorporating, something I've learned that's a little new, and it definitely helps make your hoof and your job look much more professional and better, and it makes you more precise when shaping the shoe. See that that toe is overhanging the shoe just a little bit. It's not a super big problem, and we'll rasp it and fix it, but it would have been better had I swung the foot forward first, then and rasped it, and then nailed the shoe on. You can also see that I missed a little bit right there in the lateral quarter, heel quarter. In a lot of these videos, I critique myself as much as anyone. I can watch these videos and see what I would change, what I would do different. We're constantly learning in this industry, and every shoe that you're doing should be, you should strive to have that shoe better than your last one, and make it look good and make it more functional and fit the horse better and help that horse and support his entire foot better than the last one. You'll see I put a little bit of a grind on the outside of the shoe. This does several things. On the lateral or the medial side, it doesn't allow the other hind foot to come down on it and pull the shoe off on the inside. The reason I'm doing this is I'm trying to square those clinches so that when I bend them down, they look nice and square. A lot of people have commented and said, well, why do you do all this? What's the point? Some of it is taking pride in your work and doing it properly, and the better, and doing everything that you can with intent, and not just getting lucky every once in a while when the shoe just happens to be in the right spot. We want to be able to create precision when we're shoeing, and to have precision, you have to have consistency. And so by doing things the same way and keeping the quality the same, it allows us to do a much better job long-term shoeing this horse. And it keeps our standards higher.
Quit it. Quit it.
What I'm doing here is just taking off any sharp edges, anything that can possibly catch if the horse is moving or fooling around. We don't want any sharp edges that might catch and cut him, especially where the nails are concerned. Those are usually where I'm concerned about him catching and cutting potentially. Now we're going to do the other hind foot. This would be the right hind. So one of the things when we get to looking at these hooves, when we start pulling the shoe, we look at wear patterns. We look at how it's shaped up and what we can change this next shoeing to make it possibly better. So you learn as much by pulling one of your own shoes as you do by putting one on sometimes. Now I'd like you to note, if you look, you'll see that frog hanging out the back. It looks all kind of wonky. Again, we got moisture, and about twice a year, the sole and the frog slough or exfoliate, and mostly caused by moisture because it's been hard all summer. It's hard, it's a callus, and when it gets wet, it begins to peel. Sometimes the entire hoof, the bottom of the hoof and the frog, will peel out in one big piece. It's super satisfying when that happens. But what you're seeing here, all that dead hoof is what's been in there in the hard, dry summer months that we couldn't pull out with our hoof knife or our nippers. And honestly, you don't want to. You'll sore a horse up in this country if you pull out all of their callus. So this time of year, when it's getting into fall and we start to be able to get some moisture, we can start to use our hoof knives again and start to clean up all that extra callus that's been in there over the dry months. Again, run your nippers. I run them as flat as I can so I don't have to do a ton of rasping. Now, one of the things that's interesting, folks will ask, well, why do they grow so much more toe than, say, heel? Well, this actually goes back to the wild horses. A horse in the wild wears more toe than he does heel. So the anatomy of the hoof is that they grow more toe, so if they're moving on the ground, they have extra toe, so it wears off, so it grows the same amount as when it wears. As a horse moves, it can contribute to hoof growth. So if a horse is being used a ton, it will tell the horse's body that it needs to grow more hoof. Well, the horse's body doesn't know that there's a steel shoe on there. So some of the horses that we have that are used a ton, like performance horses, they'll be on 4 or 5 week schedules sometimes, depending on how much they're being used. I've seen horses that are at 5 weeks look like they've gone 8 weeks in growth. You'll notice the distortion. That's what I was addressing there by running my rasp around the outside of the foot. I could have gotten a little bit more after it. You'll see right there where I'm rasping on the heel, there's a little hook, and I should have softened that hook a little bit more. And I've got a little bit too much distortion right there in the lateral toe quarter. But overall, it's pretty good. And I have to say, I've been learning a ton about this, and it's starting to make me look at the hoof a little different. And super awesome, and been helping me understand both hoof anatomy and just shaping shoes better. And I cannot say enough about continued education when you're shoeing. If you're the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room. You should be in a room learning constantly, or going out with your peers and learning from them as well. You'll notice that I angle the nails differently. The nails at the back of the shoe will tend to be angled less, so more straight up and down. And as I come towards the front of the foot, the nails begin to angle more towards the inside of the hoof. And this is so that we match the hoof wall. The shoes I'm using here are an SX8 size 1. I like the SX8, especially for a horse like this. This is a horse that's doing breakaway roping. They give you a little bit more slide than, say, a rim shoe. And they also have a little bit more material in them than, say, like an SX7 or a Kegger or any of your other brands out there. The only other ones that I would say that are a little bit even better than these would be Cons. And I really am starting to fall in love with the Cons. I just started using them the other day. They're a brand of shoe, and I love them. They work really well. This is blocking. This kind of seats your nails. Also sets the clinch, or the portion of the nail that is sticking out of the hoof, at a 90-degree angle. Again, using my nail cutters to square those clinches. You can see that I put a little 45-degree grind all the way around the shoe. This does a couple of different things. One of the most important things it does is it does not allow the other foot, it doesn't have a sharp edge for the other foot to come down on, especially on the medial or inside of the hoof.
Quit it.
Doing a little bit of a quarter crease right on that corner. This horse has really good feet, and one of the reasons for that is he's on a 6 to 7 week cycle. He's being done regularly, on time, and we don't allow him to get really overgrown and wonky. The other thing is he has really good conformation, good bone structure, and he has a good size foot. These traits are sometimes forgotten in the horse world, and there's an old saying, no hoof, no horse. And it is really fun to shoe a horse that has a nice symmetrical foot. You shape up the shoe, you nail it on, he's got good hoof wall, and it's a nice big foot. I really enjoy doing these kind of horses. In a lot of the videos that I have had in the past that I show you guys, I show you the worst of the worst, the horses that are super overgrown, really long, we're taking off a ton of hoof wall. And it's really nice to be able to show you guys a normal hoof and what it's supposed to look like when it's on a 6 to 7 week cycle, when it's well taken care of, when you have good genetics and everything's going right. This is the normal horse that I do. Most horses are well taken care of, well maintained, and their owners love them a lot. This particular horse is actually owned by a former farrier who does a great job of taking care of them. That'll about do it for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe.